Mistakes are common in animated shows, and our favorite show Peppa Pig is no exception. Like in the episode Captain Daddy Pig, the entire pig family can be seen going on a boating trip, and the first error can be found at the moment they leave on the boat. Initially, you can see that there's nothing on the metal pole. But seconds later, a bell magically appears. Now that's weird, isn't it? In the same episode, we found another funny error. If we look at the picnic blanket on the boat, we notice that it is filled with a variety of food items. When Peppa and George start feeding bread to the ducks, the scene zooms out, and the food that was on the picnic blanket is no longer there. This is definitely a mistake, because I don't think Daddy Pig was able to devour the entire food within seconds. Now this next error is also a weird one. Let's look at the moment when Peppa and George go running towards Mummy Pig. As we can see, first it's Peppa and then George, but seconds later the position changes. Now George is first, and then Peppa. Later in the episode, the pig family returns from the boating trip. Grandpa Pig and Grandma Pig are waiting for them. And if we look at the end part of the boat, it is empty, there's nothing there. But seconds later, a piece of metal appears out of nowhere. Now let's move on to another error. These errors can be found in the episode The Dentist. In the beginning of the episode, we can see Peppa and George near the sink, getting ready to brush their teeth. And if we look at the sink, we notice that it's filled with water. However, in the next frame, the sink is seen empty. Not a single drop of water can be seen in the sink. It seems like someone is doing some sort of magic in Peppa's house. Moving on, in the same episode, when Peppa visits the dentist, we noticed another error. As we can see in this scene, on the side of the Dr. Elephant, there is nothing. But in the next shot, a sink magically appears. In the later part of the episode, we can see that behind George are Mummy and Daddy Pig, but when the camera gets closer, they disappear. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely think Peppa's parents are some sort of magician. Continuing in the same episode, look closely at the position of this painting. As you can see, it is near the chair. However, at the end of the episode, the painting is way further away from the chair. As we all know, there's a good chance Madame Gazelle is very likely a vampire, especially since she has no shadow as we discovered in the Halloween episode. But it seems we've discovered another superpower of the Madame Gazelle, invisibility. This happens in the episode where she introduces little Emily Elephant to her new classmates. Notice that as she does this, she and Emily are side by side, with Madame Gazelle right behind the girl. However, as soon as we get a closer look at Emily, Madame Gazelle puts on her invisibility cloak, and we don't see her anymore. There's definitely something fishy going on with Madame Gazelle. In one of the episodes where Peppa is building a castle for a school project, we see the family's table filled with materials like pens, papers, and pencils. Next to the box of crayons, there are various items such as straws, colored sheets, and even some colored pencils. However, when Peppa answers Susie's call, notice that all the materials disappear from that part of the table, leaving only the box of crayons. Still talking about that colorful crayon box, notice that we have 3 units inside the box and 3 outside. But in the next scene, when Peppa answers her friend's call, the 3 sticks that were on the table mysteriously disappear. Not only that, now there are 4 crayon sticks scattered on the floor and another 3 on the kitchen sink counter next to Daddy Pig's head. Additionally, notice that between the scenes, the kitchen sink that was previously near the window disappears completely as well. In the episode where Peppa's class goes camping, we also noticed a quite interesting continuity error. First, in the scene, we see Mrs. Wolf teaching the children how to create soap bubbles. The detail is that right after, in the next scene, the tools to make soap bubbles simply disappear from the hands of all the children. Returning to the same school project episode, we also noticed another weird error that hardly anyone noticed. Notice that when Mummy Pig answers the phone, as always, the buttons are in various different colors. In this case, the first one is orange, the second one yellow, and the third is light gray. The first bottom one is blue. However, when she passes the phone to Peppa, the button colors completely change, and the light gray and orange buttons switch places, just like the bottom blue button is now in a different place. In the episode where the little tortoise ends up falling on Pedro Pony's nose when he shakes the tree, a funny error happens. When Pedro's dad is called, we see he's wearing a beautiful blue bow tie. However, When everyone realizes after several minutes that the poor tortoise is still upside down, notice that the beautiful bow tie has disappeared from Dr. Pony's outfit. Moving on. When Peppa and her family arrive at Daddy Pig's brother's house, we can see that the door handle is on one side of the door when the family opens it. But when we see the children inside the house, note that it's as if the door has reverse sides, since its handle has moved to the opposite side from what we saw before. Furthermore, the door mysteriously appeared closed when they entered the house, when in fact it should still be open. Going back to Chloe's puppet show at home, we can notice some more errors. When Chloe shows the box with the puppet models to be painted, we can see that there are 4 puppets inside, of which Peppa's cousin pulls one out, and we can notice that only 3 remain inside the box. However, right in the next scene, after painting 2 eyes on the puppet she was holding, the box still has 4 puppets inside and 1 more in Chloe's hand, now totaling 5 dolls. It's kind of like the miracle of puppet multiplication. The strangest thing is that we see when Chloe takes out the puppet to make the dinosaur puppet that George asks for, the number of puppets in the box changes abruptly once again, this time going back to having 3 puppets as it should be. Chloe then takes the puppet to paint as George asked, and only 2 remain in the box. Notice that they are close side by side, and that's when we notice another mistake happening when the scene changes angle again. We see that there are still 2 puppets inside the box, but unlike before, now each of them is at one end of the box, which makes no sense. In the episode where George gets a new dinosaur, we realize that Peppa's world is a little different from ours. Besides talking animals and vegetables, celestial bodies tend to disappear quite frequently when we're in Peppa and George's room. We can see that it's night, exactly because we see stars and a moon in the children's room window. But when the scene changes and focuses only on Daddy and Mommy Pig, we realize that the moon that was in the window went for a walk since it disappeared. In the episode George's Friends, we notice another animation error related to objects that appear and disappear, and in this case, it's about the sand buckets that George and his friend were playing with. We can see that they are there close to the children. Then Peppa Pig start a little argument to defend each of their brothers in the game, and notice that when the image expands again, the 2 sand buckets have disappeared as if they had never been there. Did the boys throw them in the air while none of us were looking at them? Going back to Chloe's puppet show episode, besides that hide-and-seek game of small puppets from the puppet show, we have one more inexplicable thing that happens inside Chloe's room. Note that on the girl's bed, there's a stuffed animal that apparently is a panda bear. Besides, we see a ball at the foot of the same bed as Peppa's cousin, but when we get to the part where the children are having fun painting their dolls and puppets, we can notice that both the ball and the stuffed animal have simply disappeared as if by magic. So, these were some of the errors we found in Peppa Pig, and as always, we'll see you all in the next video.